This was the best episode so far. I just wish the rest of the season was as good as this episode was. Hi, hello Drag Race fans. It is your least favorite Drag Race commentator. My name is Jer, and today we are talking about episode 6 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 9. Let's get into this episode. You probably noticed that I didn't even bother covering last week. I was so bored by the episode, I just couldn't even muster the strength to do it. Plastique gagged me. I was really glad that she got a win because she really went outside her box. Roxy being the undefeated lip sync champion fits in my fantasy. Anyways, this week, I still don't understand why Nina was an elf. Can anyone help me? Why was she an elf? The song was super freaky girl. And as someone who did camp quirky drag when I was performing, I don't know how you would turn super freaky girl into a Christmas number. Or why you would do that. I don't get it at all. It was weird. The mini challenge is a drag queen poll where everybody gets asked questions and then whoever wins gets a badge. I'll be honest, I didn't understand the point system at all. I thought Roxy was gonna win because she got a lot of the votes. Can someone who's good at math go through and figure that out for me, please? Angeria getting the delusional vote was really wild and doesn't make sense to me, but whatever, I wasn't in the room. Georgia ends up winning and gets a badge. Good for her. I just know that Chanel is pissed right now. I just can feel it. I can't imagine coming to Drag Race for the 3rd time to not get your flowers. Let's get into the maxi because I skipped a lot of this episode exposition. We have a roast. Chanel gets to open. She's a great MC, so honestly it makes sense to me. And Nina is closing out the show, which I think everybody kind of thinks that Nina's this like super comedy queen. But as we've seen from her original season, Nina's funny, but Nina's not bombastically funny. She's also a nice queen. So having her close the show was an interesting choice. I don't know who I would have picked, maybe Roxy or Vanjie, because they've got a lot of energy and they'd be able to end the show on a high note. But I don't think that Nina was a bad choice to end it all. RuPaul came out doing what Michelle Visage told Kelly Mantle not to do, which was wear bacon. Don't wear bacon, folks. And yet, there she was, wearing bacon. I was so glad to see Bob show up. Honestly, Bob's energy turned the entire show around for me. I honestly think that Bob set the energy tone for the episode. And her quoting Pheromone, saying, "Let's get this roast a cookin'." Oh, I was so happy. Chanel looked beautiful, but a lot of her roast kind of lacked substance. George's was in Butch Cholo drag, which was a choice. I think if this was an elimination season, they would have been like, I gotta be honest, anytime that Rue laughs like that hysterical cackling, I wonder if I'm missing something. Am I not funny? Do I not have a sense of humor? Do I not get jokes? Because I kept thinking that the whole set was just like, did I miss something? Plastique was dressed as Sailor Moon, and I just know that someone up in HR and PR and MMR and CBS and ABC and Paramount and WOW, I know that somebody was furious trying to get licensing for Sailor Moon, or at the very least, trying not to get their asses sued for a cosplay on Drag Race. But let me just tell you, Plastique had the best jokes. I think I have to wait for this person who is getting paid to blow dirt around in my apartment complex for them to get up from underneath my window. Saying that Georges was so gay she could assess the flavor of a popsicle by sitting on it was hysterical. The Michelle jokes took me out. The Leah Remini hiding in Michelle's Virginia from Scientology took me out. I have never heard that joke before. Okay, so here's some tea. I heard on TikTok, not everything on TikTok is real, but I heard on TikTok that the girls allegedly said, "Why can't we have our phones? Why are you keeping us from our phones? We're adults, we know the rules, we're not gonna break confidentiality, we signed an NDA, we know what the rules are, let us have our phones." And allegedly production did. So if they did, I wonder if Plastique hired somebody and was like, "Hey, I need some Michelle jokes ASAP. Give me some roast jokes right now. These are the girls that are here." I hope that they were hers and that they were not bought by a writer, because damn, Plastique's had such a glow up from her original season, and I'm so glad to see it. Roxy was fairly funny. I thought that the jokes about RuPaul were good. I liked playing off the fact that RuPaul can't remember any of the girls' names anymore. Vanjie, for the most part, was pretty awkward. There were a couple clusters of mid jokes that I was sort of like, eh. But for the most part, I thought that was kind of an awkward set. Angeria looked like a beautiful country singer, and overall I thought that her jokes were pretty high funny. I didn't remember any of them besides Michelle being a service animal. Gottmik had one joke that I thought was good, and that was about Carson previously being relevant. Other than that, I found the set also kind of just mid. And Nina actually did that nice queen thing very well. The one joke I liked the most was her saying, "This is a charity season, which is why Georges is here." This was a very funny roast. There weren't many clunkers. And there were a couple jokes that RuPaul was cackling at that I didn't think were that funny, but that's just me. I feel like I might be alone in that because the internet seems to like all the jokes that I did not think were very funny. I am going to lose my mind. The runway category was Atomic Blonde. This was a pretty fun runway category and I liked what everybody did generally, but out of all of them, Chanel was my favorite. She really turned it out because it was not what I was expecting from Chanel. We've been getting a very distinct silhouette all season from her, and it was so nice to see something that was a huge departure from that, on top of the fact that it was just a stellar look. I'll be honest, Plastiques was my least favorite of the night. I thought it was a little bit too far out of the box. There's this thing that queens like to do on the show where they think there's a prompt here, so I'm gonna explore outside of that box. And they go a little bit too far in the wrong direction. And I don't quite understand why she was a car. I think going in an android route could have been fun, but then it would have run the risk of being too similar to what she did last week with the day to night. So I understand why maybe that wasn't a thought in her brain. I wish it looked a little more post-apocalyptic and less sci-fi, because it looked more sci-fi than post-apocalypse, and I think the idea was apocalyptic. And then Mick's titty prosthetic was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen on this show. That was a really, really cool piece of art that I've not seen before from any other queen. Then we get to the critiques, and Mick was the only one of the night to get a negative critique, which made me raise my eyebrow because up until last week, Mick has been getting very high critiques, has been getting a lot of positivity from the judges, but then we seem to have done a really hard left, and the tinfoil hat part of my brain can't help but wonder if some producer thought, all right, well, we did our job and we were nice to the trans community and now we're not going to anymore. It is suspicious to me though, because up until this point, we've been straying away from negative critiques. And in other episodes, when people like Chanel were really not good, they just said, let's talk about your runway because you look fantastic. And in the challenge, you did pretty good. Moving on to Gottmik, you know, and they'll breeze through it. They breezed through those critiques, but they really harped on Mick this episode where no one else got that, especially queens like Vanjie, who were kind of awkward and cringe. Angeria and Plastique are the top two of the week. The song is Be My Lover by LaBouche. I am going to fight. You've already been over here. I cannot believe that it has been 16 seasons and 8 All-Stars up until this point before we got Be My Lover, because this is an iconic drag queen song. Certainly more than Shackles. Angeria wins and snips Roxy. Now, I personally think that this was the worst decision that she could have done. One, I don't really like the tit for tat thing, but also, Roxy has 3 wins, which means that she's pretty solidly secured in the top at this point in the competition. The smartest thing to do, I'm not great at math, but I am really good at competition and strategy. If you have a front runner, they're basically going to the end. Looking at Mario Party rules, if you have Mario with 5 stars, you want to prevent somebody else from being able to take the spot that Mario's got. And your only opportunity to get to a higher spot is to stop someone else who might be close to Mario. So I would have cut someone like Georges or Mick or Nina. Snipping Roxy seems like a really bad strategic move because she's locked in. You have to stop your other competitors from getting close to your front runner. Next week is an acting challenge with RuPaul. It looks very much like that sissy challenge that they had in season 6. looking forward to seeing what a couple of these girls do, but I'm also not looking forward to all the cringe that's going to happen. And for anyone who's keeping up with my alt universe, nobody went home last week, and this week Angeria came in and snipped out Mick from the competition. So in my alt universe where eliminations are happening, currently we are sitting at Georges, Vanjie, Nina, and Angeria. As my last aside, there was a message in this episode to go out and vote. And if you are living in the States, you need to be paying attention to what's going on in the Supreme Court right now. In this last decision that they made is literally, this is not an exaggeration or a dog whistle. This decision by the Supreme Court is a major milestone for Project 2025 and sets in place a dangerous precedent for our democracy. It is imperative that you go out and vote. No matter what your policy standards are, we cannot allow Project 2025 to go into effect. Please go vote this year. Register yourselves to vote and get out there in November. And with that being said, I will see you very soon for yet another episode, unless next week is a flop, in which case I'm not going to talk about it. See you on the flip. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe. Goodbye.